All right, guys, we're on to the second power rule, and this one's kind of tricky. It has to do with roots. So if you have an exponent that is a fraction or a division, a divided by b, you can actually write that as a root and vice versa. So if you have a root, you can write that as a fraction exponent. The way that's really actually helpful is if you have a square root and it's hard for you to make a square root symbol, you can actually write that as x to the 1/2, because that would just be a regular x to the first power, and the root would be 2. And part of that is also we typically don't write a 2 on a square root, so you might not see it written like this that we have here. But we do use that for all the other roots. And so it's important to know that a square root is it's actually a 2 that's there, but there's other roots that have different numbers. So we're going to first try 5 to the 6 divided by 2 power. So we can simplify this first by doing 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So I'm going to have an exponent of 3. 5 to the 3rd power, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Now, if I had this, which is a little bit more complicated, I would simplify that by first doing the inside of the root, which is the 5 to the 6th power. So I'm going to go to my calculator. 5 to the 6th power, that's 15,625. And I am square rooting that. So the bottom of the fraction that we see up here, that's the type of root we have. And so in this case, it's a 2. So I'm going back over to my calculator. Now, like I said, a regular square root, we typically don't write a 2 on there. But if you have a particular root, in this case, we're going to write the 2 in there just so you can see. Oops. I'm using this one here that has this little n. And so this is the square root, which again is the same thing as a root. And I'm going to take the square root of 15,625. And as we see here, that also gives me 125. And so doing these roots can actually be a little bit trickier. So I would say anytime you have a root, the easier thing to do is to convert that into the fraction exponent. That's going to be a lot more simple. And so that's what I'm doing for this thing right here. So rather than writing the 4th root of x to the 20th, what that really is x to the 20th power divided by 4. And so then we can just simplify that as x to the 5th power. So where we really see this is like with, again, using 1/2 power for a square root. A cube root like this would be a 1/3 power. A 4th root would be 1/4 power. You don't see a lot of those exponents inside the root like this. But if they do, that would go on the top of that fraction there. So 4th root, you could write that as x to the 1/4 power. Cube root, you could write that as x to the 1/3 power. So these are just easier ways of writing roots. So go ahead and try this problem. I know it's a little bit trickier using the Desmos calculator to put that in, but again, make sure that you use this one here, and then you'll be able to put in the type of root. All right, so go ahead and try the problems on the right, on the next screen, which is the draw screen.